The Nebraska legislature finished up its first week in session this afternoon, but many senators are still talking about an incident that caught the attention of the governor earlier this week. We first alerted you to this story Wednesday night when we spoke with Michaela Cavanaugh, seen here taking parts of a temporary exhibit off the walls inside the Capitol. Cavanaugh initially defended taking down the posters around her office, saying it wasn't political. She just took down things on the wall in her hallway because it's just not allowed. This afternoon, though, the senator was more apologetic.
I am sorry. What I did on Wednesday, I should not have done. I have regretted it pretty much ever since, and I regret putting all of my colleagues in the position to have to deal with the repercussions of my actions.
Senator Jared Storm wants the executive board to decide if Senator Cavanaugh should face punishment.
The conduct in question is not a minor political protest. It is a serious lapse of decorum, judgment, and respect for the rules of the institution norms of the state capitol. We encourage the executive board to review Senator Michaela Cavanaugh's behavior and take action to hold her accountable, including considering censure or any other discipline if deemed appropriate.
Governor Pillen said he was disappointed in what he calls a shameful and selfish bad example while celebrating America's 250th birthday.